Hey all, G-Spree here. It's been 5 months since I did a video on Vellum, and you need to see the progress that this game has made. So we played this in beta in Next Fest at the way beginning of the year, and we're super excited for its launch. We played it on launch and it was an absolute blast, and we didn't really think much of it. As we kept playing it and the weeks and months passed, they do not seem to slow down with the quantity and quality of their updates. In these short few months that this game has been out, let's just recap and let's just take a look at all of the insane changes and additions, mainly, that they've made to their game. I would also like to say that I've almost 100%ed this game. The way to 100% the game is basically to ascend everything twice. So if you remember, or if you know the scriptorium, where you have to get to level 30 to get all of the base traits, once you get to level 30 you can ascend, and basically you just get a cool little thing over your name and then get to do it all over again. Ascending twice is what gets you the 100% completion on achievements at this current moment. I don't believe they've added a whole bunch of new things apart from the signature achievements, because they've added a couple of signatures between them, but the main thing is just getting that ascension level 2. Now there have been 6 major content updates that they call chapters that have been released since the release of the game on 1.0, all this stuff. So I just found out that in between each chapter, each major update, they have another smaller update in between called an interlude. So for each 6, there's currently 6 chapters out now. We haven't gotten the interlude after chapter 6. There are 5 interlude updates, which have arguably also some pretty big updates and changes. So we've got 4 new spenders, 3 new generators, 2 new movement abilities, and this is insane. So we'll get into this in a second too. 3 new bosses, a bunch of quality of life additions and changes, bunch of feature additions, and of course a bunch of new pages of power. Now if this game is not on your radar, if you know nothing about this, please watch my first video about this. It's absolute banger. I'm super proud of it. It's a 15-minute just kind of overview video of what was going on when the game came out, and it'll kind of give you a base idea of what's going on. Otherwise, if you want me to just speak words at you, I can do that too, and I will speak absolute gibberish in terms of writing stuff, writing a novel with stories and stuff, because that's kind of what the theme of this game is, you know, you're writing your ink, you got your signature, you got your generators of ink, your spenders of ink, and it's like scribes and transcriptions and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. It's pretty unique. So let's break down what's in each of these chapters and interludes, shall we? Chapter 1 brings us endless mode, which is exactly what it sounds like. So once you beat the original, there's 7 chapters in a regular run. Chapter 7, I think it's 7. It might be 6. I could be very wrong. It could be 6. Either way, the very last chapter is a boss fight. Then you fight the boss, and then after that they added appendixes, or an endless mode. So once you beat the boss, you have the option to end the run, go back to the library, regroup, use all of your quill marks on upgrades, and then go back into another one. Or you can keep going, where you'll obviously get faced with a more difficult challenge, you'll get higher rewards, and you just get to go again. So there's, in each appendix, there's 3 nodes, and on the 3rd one there's another final boss. You don't get any more help from the font throughout these via font upgrades, but you obviously do get a bunch more pages of power, which will obviously help. And you can do these forever. It's endless mode. So you beat the 3 levels, you get your boss, and then you can choose to either stop the run and go back to the library, or go again. We're also introduced to the Ascension mode, which I brought up earlier. So once you get to level 30 on the scriptorium, you get to spend everything and, you know, go revert to monkey and start all over again. We're also introduced to a brand new spender, which is your right click for those of you who don't know. And it's an AoE blossom bloom attack that goes around the area of the scribe, or you. It's pretty cool, though I haven't used it a whole lot, so I don't really know like the pure power that it holds. And then we also have the brand new movement spell Ghostwrite, which is by far, I think, the greatest movement spell out of any of the spells to choose from. Ghostwrite basically makes you invincible and invisible for a little bit. You kind of just zoom through enemies, and you can get upgrades to have an effect or a debuff placed on enemies that you go through. They last longer, stuff like that. It's a 4-second cooldown, which is a lot larger than the regular dash, and it kind of threw me off at the beginning, but once I got used to it, you know, it's pretty good. And then the interlude after chapter 1 brought us loadouts, where you can save your signature ink along with a specific generator, a specific movement ability, and a specific spender ability. I've never really used this. I kind of just pick and choose what I want before every single run. And then they also introduced another spender called Callback, which is like a little boomerang thing that goes out. It's pretty cool. I actually really like this one. It's one of my favorites. It can have additional casts, it can get bigger, it can explode, it can bounce. It's really nice. I really like it. But on to chapter 2, which brings us to our very first new signature ink, Pink. Now, pink is insane. I don't fully understand it yet, and I admittedly have not done my research on pink, but you kind of just build up a bunch of damage, and there's a lot of different keywords that I could have done research on, but I just didn't. So I'll kind of just play some stuff behind me here to, you know, make up for my lack of knowledge. It's pretty cool. They've also added a new tome, which is a new campaign of the game. There's what, 3, 6, 9, 8 or 9 tomes right now, I think. This is a good amount, and obviously you can play back any one of these at any time that you want. And they also added a new boss, and they also added a challenge board, like a quest board, which they upgrade, and I'll kind of just go over this in chapter 2 right now, but they've been adding a bunch of extra stuff to these. They've got daily quests, they've got weekly quests, they've got quests for each specific ink, which is just achievements in its own inside of the game, and it gets you some cool cosmetics, some quill marks, and some coins to purchase more upgrades. And then they also added something called recommended somethings or other, which basically it'll give you extra cool marks for picking a certain tome or bender or generator, and it gives you 120 per, so it's a hefty bonus for picking what the game wants you to pick. The interlude of chapter 2 is basically just a bunch of quality of life stuff, and then also a new boss. So we'll go right on to chapter 3, where they added Vignes, which is like a little bit of a little nice slice of life world in between the abysmal chapters of enemies. Not abysmal, obviously, but it's a no battlefield zone, and you just kind of get do a little bit of a quest or a puzzle thing and get an extra page of power. It's pretty cool. They also added a new tome and new objectives to go within the game. So in each level that you have, or each chapter that you have, you get an objective about, you know, a quarter of the way through, which ranges from capturing the flag, bumping a volleyball, throwing a basketball, climbing to the top of a spire, and then once you do all these quests, sometimes it's also beating an elite boss or mini boss, but they give you a page of power once you complete it, so it's just kind of a nice little bonus if you do it. The interlude of chapter 3 brings us a brand new generator called Flask, which bounces off and does AoE damage. It's pretty cool. I'm saying everything is pretty cool. Honestly, all these changes are pretty darn cool, but Flask has a little bit of a bounce, and then it explodes on impact. It's nice. I haven't toyed around with it a lot. It's not one of my go-tos, but I can see where it is super cool to use. And then they also added a ping system for in between the games, so you can mark, I want to go here or attack this guy. It's super useful to kind of pinpoint an elite or an enemy in the middle of the fray to your teammates, even if you're just in the same call. Chapter 4 brings us my favorite new signature, Orange, which summons Atlas, a little turret thing that just kind of shoots stuff, and you can upgrade them to do more damage, more attack speed. It also drops a little bit of a buff for those nearby, and then you can activate your ability again at a specific spot on the map, and he'll beam. It'll shoot a beam at the enemies, and it's just a continuous beam. And throughout using your spells and your abilities and whatnot, you pick up things called Survey, which basically you just stack up a bunch. It's an unlimited amount of stacks of Survey that you can get, and then once you're ready to kind of use them, you bring them over to Atlas, you stand in its little AoE, and then it just does a bunch of extra damage until that Survey is no longer usable. So it uses all those stacks as much as possible. It does a bunch of extra damage, and then after time it goes away and you have to pick up your stacks again. We've also got a new movement ability called Vault, which I haven't honestly used, but it's just a big jump, so it's kind of it's nice to get above your enemies or get to a higher spot. The interlude for chapter 4 introduces quick match, just kind of a way to find some matchmaking if you're playing by yourself, and then a new generator called Cards, where you just kind of flip some cards around. It's not called Cards, it's called Draw. But if you hold down your M1, it'll get a little bit more inaccurate, and then you have to shuffle your deck again, and you know, your first shot will be a little bit more accurate. Chapter 5 brings us 2 new beautiful maps, which I absolutely love. A new spender called Eclipse, which is a little circle, not a circle, a planet that goes up, and then it uses its little eyeballs and it seeks out an enemy and just it just beams them. And then they also added a bunch of new enemies. The interlude for chapter 5 brings us a codex, which is just kind of your records of all of the runs that you've done and stuff like that. A new generator called Enkindle, which is a flamethrower. It is amazing. I need to play this more. And they also added a bunch of new enemies. Honestly, the interlude for chapter 5 was a bigger update set than the actual chapter. I guess apart from the actual maps. The maps is big. But chapter 6, which just dropped just about 2 weeks ago at the time this video goes up, drops some new lore that you can pick up, and you can learn things about the game, because lore, everybody loves lore, everybody loves reading about their game. We got a new spender called Weave, where you can charge up as much or as little amount of your mana as you want, and expel it in little pin needles that go shoot the enemy and do your bidding. It's kind of weird. I'm trying to get behind it, but it's interesting, that's for sure. There's also a new boss, and they added a monocolor rework, which is absolutely amazing. So originally, you have 3 mana gems at base, and the top one is always your signature color. Now you could never get, unless you got, you know, pages of power that allowed you to have more color on your mana gems, you could never get the other 2 to be colored. So now what they've done is once you're at 3, the first one is no longer a free color, but once you've done all these 3, you get to start overcharging basically, and then the first one will be colored, the second one will be colored, and then the third one will be colored, as long as you obviously color the rest and still have mana, which is honestly a really cool change. I'm super stoked for this one. And so as I've said at the real beginning, there have been a lot of quality of life changes and a lot of pages of power additions, which are absolutely amazing. Obviously they had to add more pages of power for each ability that came out and every signature that came out, but it's really cool to just see the amount of progress that they have made on this game. And if this game is not on your radar, again, I highly recommend giving it a shot. I hope you have enjoyed this style of video. This is definitely a different overview video because I've already done a basic overview video. I'm really happy with the way this turned out, honestly, and I'm super stoked to just kind of talk about Vellum because I absolutely love this game. I have already poured tens of hours into this game. I can't say tens of hundreds, I can't say hundreds yet because I don't think it has been out for hundreds of hours. I'm also a busy man. But anyway, I'm in the middle of moving, so this might be the last video you see in this setting, and I swear I'll do some actual work on actually getting a set to not just have, you know, my monitors on a desk and the only like actual RGB coloring coming from my room, coming from my PC. But I've made a lot of good videos here and I'm sad to see it go, but I'm super excited for the next place. So I hope you will enjoy what I continue to make throughout the rest of this year, and I've got some extra stuff planned as I've said in the past, so stick around for some new announcements coming very soon, and we'll see you later. Have a good one.